then we'll have time for comments and questions. The meeting and the PowerPoint presentation are both going to be available online. So you're welcome to get it that way too. They'll be posted after the meeting. Okay, so the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act did not actually include any lands in Kalaeloa. Those lands were transferred to DHHL as surplus lands that were from the base realignment and closure of the former Barbers Point Naval Air Station. So DHHL got a total of 9 parcels of approximately 555 acres. All of these lands have been designated by DHHL as industrial. We're focusing today on just one parcel that's approximately 20 acres. It is just north of the Kalaeloa Airport in that blue little weird shape. It's not a square. And within that parcel, next slide, please. Next slide. Yep, that one. Perfect. Within that parcel, we're actually only looking at a little under 2 acres of it. And so that's the turquoise boundary within that larger shaped item. And so that 1.6 acre portion of the parcel includes an existing 2-story building, which has 20 studio units in it, a parking lot, and there's a little bit of landscaped areas with grass and trees. So next slide. Currently, we have 2 tenants that are using the facility. They occupy 3 units and they're using it for office and storage space. They generate approximately $13,000 a year in total. When this building was used by the Navy, it was actually utilized like a hotel. So it provided visiting officers with temporary lodging. And so those are the types of units that the current tenants are using for office space and storage. Next slide. The project that we're proposing will create a space that can be utilized for transitional housing for Native Hawaiian applicants that are homeless. Every year, Partners in Care does a point-in-time count of homeless individuals on Oahu. DHHL has compared the data that was collected in 2019 and 2020, and they compared it to DHHL's Oahu applicant list. What we found was an overlap of 78 individuals. This means that those 78 DHHL beneficiaries on the Oahu applicant list were also identified as being homeless. In that situation, those individuals are not very well situated to accept a lease award. So the intention of this project is not to remove anybody from the wait list. It's to provide assistance for some of the more needy families within our lahui and individuals. So this program is designed to provide assistance for up to 18 houseless beneficiaries and put them in a little bit more stable place. It is not a long-term solution, but it does provide a place for them to transition off of the streets and into safe housing. The housing that we're proposing to provide would be a studio. It has an in-suite bathroom, a small kitchenette that would have amenities like a microwave, a refrigerator, a hot plate. It doesn't have everything, but it does have the things that you need, the basics. While the details of this project are still being developed, we believe that individuals and small families, like a couple with a small child, they'd be able to stay in the facility for a year up to 18 months. In order to develop this project, the existing structure would need to be renovated for modern day use. So we would need to replace the water system, the electrical systems. They had a boiler in the past that would get removed. There's need for repairing the parking lot. We would like to install a photovoltaic system, but that will just depend on if it makes sense to do so. And ultimately, all 20 units would be renovated with 18 providing transitional housing, and the remaining 2 units would be used for support services and laundry. So we are here because we need to do the lands as they currently are designated under industrial. So people don't live in industrially designated areas. So the reason we're here is part of the planning process. So DHHL has a 3-tiered planning process that guides the way that we utilize our lands. It helps us with our policies for resource management so that we can benefit both our current beneficiaries and those in the future. So the planning system includes an overarching general plan that it has a 20-year time frame. It is followed by a strategic plan and island plans in the 2nd tier. And then in the 3rd tier is regional and development plans. The general plan that we are currently operating under was developed in 2002, and it is actually being updated right now. There is an update that is currently available for public review, and actually on the table at the sign-in is a QR code. So if you want to take a picture of that QR code, it will take you to the general plan website. So if you have questions about what's being updated on that, you can go there for it. The Oahu Island Plan, which also informs our decision, was completed in 2014. And this community just completed the Kapolei Regional Plan in March of this year. The community identified priorities for improving quality telecommunication options, more open space in parks and recreational areas, opportunities for a kupuna living community, as well as support for the Heritage Center, commercial development, as well as the development of a Hawaiian focused school. So this project at Yorktown is informed by all of these plans. And when the island plan was in development, all of the lands in Kalaeloa were designated as industrial for a variety of reasons. But the main ones were because they were formerly used for the military, they had historic resources, and there was a lot of substandard infrastructure in the area. Since then, some of these conditions have changed. For example, the electrical grid is being modernized in the vicinity of the project area. So that means that the existing building can actually connect to the new grid as part of this rehabilitation project. The land that we are interested in utilizing, however, is still limited in what we can use it for because it is very close to the airport. Next slide. Okay, so as I said, the current land use is industrial. The way that we generally think of what industrial uses are on DHHL lands are more light industrial uses. So that could be processing, construction, manufacturing, transportation, wholesale, warehousing, and other industrial activities. It is not things like a landfill or a oil refinery. So it's more light industrial, but that still doesn't match up with having houseless individuals living there. So our intention is to use this for transitional housing, and it doesn't match up. So the DHHL beneficiary consultation policy requires that we consult with beneficiaries if we're going to amend the land use. We are, as I said, we're currently operating under the 2002 general plan. Under that general plan, there are 10 land uses that have 4 homesteading uses and 6 other uses. But as I said, the general plan is being updated. Next slide. So in the new general plan, the one that's currently under draft, it includes all of the existing uses, plus there's a few new ones. So under homesteading, it still has residential, subsistence ag, supplemental ag, and pastoral. But they've also added a new one, which is DHHL Kuleana, which means it's a raw lands, no infrastructure homestead opportunity. As far as the other land uses that the updated plan is currently proposing, It still includes all the ones that were previously in it, which were general ag, special district, community use, conservation, commercial, and industrial. And they did add several new ones, which are stewardship, community agriculture, and renewable energy. So the goal of our beneficiary consultation in our future meetings will be to evaluate this project and determine which land use designation will be the best fit. So our goal today is that we are providing you with information and answer any questions that you may have. But we don't want to start the beneficiary consultation process until the general plan is updated and approved by the commission. Because we could go through all of this, pick a land use designation, and then when they finalize the general plan, they might decide to take it out or put in something that would be better. So it makes sense in our minds to wait until the general plan is done first, and then we can begin the beneficiary consultation. So that does mean we need a little bit of flexibility on timing. We won't know exactly when we will start that beneficiary consultation. Sure. Can you come up to the mic, please? We only have a few, so we might as well do interactive.
John,
That's perfect. Yeah, you can. Then you can always.
Yes, can you repeat that? So you want to wait until the general plan is updated before you go ahead and put the recommendations of this project.
So the project is going forward. One of the things that we need to do is change. We do know that we need to change the land use because it is industrial right now. So we know that's not a good fit. But we're hesitant to begin the beneficiary consultation until the general plan has been updated. So the current one is out for public comment. The intention for the planning office is to complete the general plan and have it approved in either November or December by the commission. So our thoughts are based on when they're done, that we would hold our beneficiary consultation after that. Because then we will be able to utilize all of the existing land use designations, plus all of the new ones that they decide to add in it. Does that make more sense?
Yeah, I just wanted to understand. So yes.
I know it's a weird and a little confusing.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. It's always helpful to have somebody, it made sense in my head, but as I was saying.
I just sometimes for us as beneficiaries, when we wait until the general plan, sometimes we feel that some of the stuffs that, a 2002 project, 18 years or so later might change. So that was why, for me in my community, that was a thing, a lot changes. And so if you wait for the general plan, then it's not inclusive, in the 20-year mark. So that was, I just wanted to understand that I can better relate it back to the community, but thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I think we're ready for the next slide. Yeah, no problem. And Mike, if there's any comments in the chat, we can take them kind of as they go because we have such a intimate group tonight.
So you can hear. Yeah, absolutely. Can hear.
You can listen.
Yeah, we can hear that.
The best I can.
Okay. So I wanted to just kind of go through the things that we've already started doing in support of this project. So we did complete our requirements for the Chapter 343. So this project was evaluated and it was determined to be exempted from the requirement to complete an EA. So instead of doing that, we completed an exemption declaration, and that was done in March of 2021, and it was published in the environmental notice at that time. We've also conducted a phase 1 environmental site assessment that same month. We started consultation with Native Hawaiian organizations and stakeholders that were recommended by the State Historic Preservation Office. That started in February of 2021, and we completed that in July of 2021. We have received concurrence from State Historic Preservation on the archaeological resources. When we met, when they provided that, they did indicate that they were fine with us doing renovations inside the facility, but that we needed to do a little bit more work on the outside of the facility to determine if it was a historic site. So in May of 2022, we did a reconnaissance level survey for architecture, and that was submitted to the SHPO Historic Preservation in June. And then this past, just last week, we did brief the commission so that they were aware of our project and our intentions moving forward. And that takes us to today. Next slide. So these are the actions that are still needed. We still are waiting to get concurrence with State Historic Preservation with regards to the exterior of the building. Our reconnaissance level survey indicated that the building does not meet all of the significance criteria to make it historic. They have had some fairly significant changes to the exterior of the building, so it hasn't kind of retained its initial look. Sorry, my slide got messed up. Give me a second here. I need my notes. There we go. Okay, and then the next thing that we still need to complete is the NEPA, or the Federal Environmental Record Review. So both the state and the federal side of things have their own environmental review process. We are using federal funds, so we do need to meet the federal requirements. That is actually very close to completion. I believe we will be finishing it by the end of this September. Number 3 is in red, because this is when I'm hoping that we will do beneficiary consultation to identify the most compatible land use for the project. But as I said, it will depend on the general plan update. Fingers crossed, they'll get it all done. And so November is what we're shooting for. If we need to push it back, we will, because it makes more sense to follow the new material. And if all goes as planned, then we plan on selecting a contractor through the request for proposals procurement process. And we are hoping that that will happen in early 2023. And I do not have anything else to share with you unless you have questions.
I do like the proposal for rehabilitation, because our people do need it. And I think, John, our community, our 3 homesteads have worked with Makano Keakua, and John can speak more about it because he's a beneficiary. And there's a lot of homeless and our families within the homestead that do need this. So we do see a need. I'm here today as the president of Kaupea because we want to know this project, how long has it been in the planning process? And then will the community be a part of the planning process with the planning department? That was some of the concerns for Kapolei in our homestead that was requesting. So, you know, we want to hear feedback, and we think it's a project that is needed for families like multifamilies. We see the need within our homesteads. I know, speaking from the families of the 4 homestead, we see a lot. We also have been working with Pastor Alan Cardenas. This is, and the other churches, seeing the needs of homestead beneficiaries, both leases as well as waitlist. So we kind of wanted to follow this project. And the second thing was, how did you determine who would be those 18 people to go in? And how do you, are they on the wait list? Are they signed up? I think that was another concern that came to me, because we do have family members that they see this and they want to know how long is it going to take, because they got people that are transitioning, don't have a place, or they're currently in their car. So for me, this is a project that I like to follow and be engaged. You know, our neighborhood security watch works with a lot of families that need transition, or they are in situations where they will be living on the beach. And I think it just puts so much more stress upon it. And I think the community, like the trust, would want to help those beneficiaries. So I'm not sure who's the contact, if it's you guys on the project, but I know John and I had a good interest. John, maybe you can tell them a little bit about why you're here.
No, I'm here because I heard that you guys might be possibly doing a transitional housing project, and that's what I do. So I'm very interested. Like Eva said, I'm with Makano Kiakua. We've been doing clean and sober housing, transitional housing for 19 years. So yeah, I'm here to see how we can either partner, how we can be a part of this. Yeah.
So I'm gonna let Cynthia tell you a little bit more about when the process started.
Right.
Because she actually was the one, it was her brainchild, and I think it's great. So I'll let her share with you on that.
Actually, the project started last year. There was a request for DHHL to see whether or not another organization could utilize that building, rehab it, and then use it for transitional housing. The thing that was a detraction for me was that it would have locked that property up for anywhere from 15 to 30 years in somebody else's hands. We did apply for a grant at that time. That did not come through. So when that did not come through, there was a discussion internally within DHHL whether or not NAHASA would be able to handle the renovation of the building and then continue with that same track of utilizing it for transitional housing, but keep it all internal as far as the management and the timeframes and what have you. It has not been my intent to have DHHL set up a whole new department to go manage something like this. The intent would probably be to go out and contract to have it managed. As far as your second question, I don't think that has been determined yet as far as what the process is going to be for the selection. There's a couple of things that are going on here. There's a group called the Continuum of Care, or their name is Partners in Care on Oahu, that receives a lot of the HUD funding for supportive services for the homeless in types of programs. There is a process between them and the state for how you transition people, not necessarily from on the beach into emergency housing, but from emergency housing to transitional housing, from transitional housing to permanent supportive housing. So I'm not sure if that's going to be part of this picture that we're going to be looking at. The one thing that we've made clear is that this will only be for beneficiaries on the wait list, because that way we know for sure who we're helping, which are those people, as Malia had mentioned, that probably, given their current circumstances, if their name ever came up,
That's
you know, besides the fact of trying to find them, because you don't know where their mail is going to, but even if you could contact them, because of their circumstances, it would be next to impossible to get them into something. So the idea was to try to get people, however we select and get them in there, but to get them stabilized.
Right.
not necessarily to put a barrier up that says, oh, you gotta be alcohol-free, drug-free, whatever. We know that with the Housing First principle, with that working with homeless people, that doesn't work. So you want to bring them in and then work with them once you have them housed and stabilized. So that was the intent, was to try to do that. And then, as Malia had said, hopefully between 12 to 18 months, we can get them stabilized to the point where with the other different types of programs that are available out there, we could get them into either permanent supportive housing or some other type of a system that would get them more mainstream than continuing to live on the beach. But that was the whole intent of this, was to try to, because we have that building, it's just sitting there until we decide what to do with that parcel of land, was why not try to help a little bit of everybody on the entire spectrum of the wait list, those who can to those who can't. At least that was my vision to start with. And I think at this point in time, most people recognize that that's probably a pretty good thing to try to do so that we can get some of our own people off the beach
Right.
and just get housed, get stable, be able to look themselves in the face, really. So that was the intent.
Amen.
I don't know if that answers all of your questions.
Thank you, Cynthia, because I think that what you guys, hearing it from you guys firsthand, I think John and I work with a lot of the families that do need this. So I feel like the visions of what the beneficiary have and what you're stating is hope, right, John? This is what we've been hearing. You know, the pandemic just came. We still have a lot of families that, you know, is not stable. Some of them have issues with whether they're going or in a program. But I think hearing this, I think, you know, this is a start for something I've never heard or seen the department do. So I appreciate you folks bringing that out. And I'm hoping that more people would come out to see, because that was one of the biggest requests that we have, was the transitional housings for some of the families that the department will have for those on the wait list. So to hear that you guys did it makes me happy to know that we are thinking on the spectrum of those that, you know, would never have an opportunity, because, you know, most turnkey places, you have to make this kind of income, you have to have all that background. So majority of the people that I know that John and I come to, they just throw their hands up in the air and just say, I'm not gonna even try. But I think Cynthia and what you guys approaches, and from what I hear, I think that's a good step going forward. I'm just hoping that as this project goes forward, that what you guys are planning, I feel like that's the holistic approach that some of the beneficiaries want to do with the
Yeah.
department and transition. So I think more consultation and meetings like this, we could be more engaged in that process. I mean, that's technically why I'm here, so that I can hear from the department firsthand and see the projects, especially in our community, going forward. Because we did see that place where you guys have, it's been abandoned, you know, and I think that's a good step going forward in what we have. So thank you, Cynthia, for you guys doing this project. I'm excited to at least let the people that we've spoke to know that this is a plan, and hopefully they can look at it. So everything you presented is online. And when do you think the next meeting will be for your guys' consultation? If you guys are looking at November for the general, is that something, is there a series? Did you guys plan on, okay, this, you want to get this out 2023, it's August. Is there going to be a set, more community engagement? Because I feel kind of sad, something as important and big like this. And just me and him, you know, I'm glad. I was like, I'm so tired, but this is, I truly believe in this, you know, because I have families that are on the wait list that needed programs like this, and it didn't exist. And John and I witnessed some of those wait lists commit suicide, you know, and I don't want that, you know, we have a lot of families that they're still mourning that, so I thank you very much for you guys planning that, and I guess you guys have our contact. I'd like to know when more of the consulting is, because I let more of my board and the other communities join in with us. that
Right.
we have.
So the next one is my intention would be for it to be in November. So that is our
Okay,
plan.
10 and 10, okay.
And definitely we'll send out another flyer once we know.
So you guys have a committee that sits down and discuss this and what you're gonna do and
I'll leave that to Lehua to answer, or
I can. I'll start, and if Cynthia wants to add in, she can add in. I think there's a couple, so we're like way early. It may not seem way early in the process, but we're still just trying to deal with the land use designation, like Malia was explaining. When she was talking about 2023, that's just the rehab of the building.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So we're
yes.
not even talking
Yeah.
about, I think where you're at is more on the implementation. Yes.
Services,
Yeah.
yeah.
which
And
is important.
it is, it is. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm hopeful that we will have sufficient time, because that can be ongoing even while
Mhm.
construction is
Yeah.
taking place.
Mhm.
You can, I don't know if you want to answer directly the question about a committee. I don't think we necessarily envision the committee, but this could be part of the consultation process and stuff.
Yeah,
That would be helpful.
I would think that it would be more part of the consultation process. I had not planned on a committee. Actually, I sit on the Homeless Interagency Council, the Hawaii Interagency Council on Homelessness, the state organization on behalf of DHHL.
Mm.
Because part of my background is I've been associated with homeless programs since about 2008 in various forms. So my intent was to try to get through all of the legal aspects from utilizing the federal funds, what we could and we could not do, and then also work with partner agencies on island, especially Partners in Care, since they tend to have most of the federal monies come into them for homeless projects, to try to figure out what the best process would be to attempt to figure out how this would be run. As I had mentioned, it is not my intention, nor do I think anybody else in DHHL wants to take this by the horns and run a program out of DHHL, as much as what we'd like to do is to put a good contract together, an RFP together, so that somebody could come on in and run the project. I don't know if, I mean, I'm sure you're aware of it. There's 3 organizations in Kalaeloa that are already running homeless shelter
Right.
operations. We have others on island. We have outreach teams here and around the island. And I'm very familiar with the state homeless programs office and how they run things. It will probably be similar, but not the same. Because again, we're going to be targeting a specific population.
Right.
It is going to be for beneficiaries. I mean, that's the other reason why we pulled everything back in-house, because if we're utilizing the federal funds that we have, we can put some of those restrictions in place so that it does target our beneficiaries
Direct beneficiaries.
versus having it be open to everybody, especially if it's on our lands.
Mhm. Definitely.
I need to figure out how a committee would work on this, but that potentially could work. As long as everybody understands who all the
Key players,
various
yeah.
players are and the pieces that are
Sure.
going to be moving between
Yeah.
now and then. So I think, Lehua and I will probably talk about that and see how we put something like that together, if that makes sense, or if we just have smaller consultation groups as we're going along, but to try to keep you guys informed and make sure that we get the correct feedback coming to us for how you also helping to envision this moving forward,
Mhm.
because we want this to be successful.
Yes,
Um,
us too. And I would like, just to mention that I would, I know there's NHOs, but I like to see programs be more homestead beneficiaries or wait list that are doing the programs, I feel like I would want more engagement or opportunities for people like Mocha, and there's other beneficiary wait lists that do rehabilitation and the transitional. So for me, it's always, beneficiaries that are doing this program, and from a community standpoint, I see that things like the transitional housing and the programs, I know it when it's community led by the beneficiaries who always is there. I've seen a different outcome of it. And, I think as beneficiaries, we need that, not only that resources, but that team. And so I'm just hoping that the department can consider, and I'll speak to some of the beneficiaries, nonprofits that wanted to take place in what's happening now. I know in Kapolei and Nanakuli, to have an opportunity in the beginning stage like this to see, that York is just a small area. So I think, programs like that would be a great start for just beneficiary homestead organizations or beneficiary nonprofits to work with the department and how they can be a part of the solutions in a program like this. That's kind of where my concern, because I've seen the process and I've seen what it takes, and I'm hoping that Cynthia, that you guys can consider that we could bring in those people, John, like Pastor Bonnie and all of those that looking in for transition. But you guys have answered. Thank you so much. I mean, you guys have made it simple and I can understand, because I know rehabilitation is a big thing. So thank you.
Oh, you're
Thank
welcome.
you.
We do have a couple of questions in the chat, and Mike, I apologize, I can't read it.
Okay, so because I don't have a microphone.
Yeah.
I'll read that. So it's not from empty home.
So from Auntie Home,
Signed in late, he said, will there be any ADA units?
will there be any ADA units? The answer is yes. We are planning on doing at least 2 on the bottom floor.
That seems to be the only one in the chat at the moment. But she does have her hand raised, so go ahead and tell her to, open up her.
Auntie Home, you can open up your mic and ask your question.
Okay, I'm trying.
We hear you.
Okay. Aloha for putting this.
Aloha.
I'm so sorry. I signed in a little late, so I needed to ask that question. I think for me, when we talk about transitional, that term is used and associated mostly with a certain population of our community. And I may be wrong, but I think that's why John is there. Aloha, John, it's Homie. So my thing is, when you say beneficiary consultation that you're expecting to have in November, will there be a charrette of sort where community can participate in that, or could the beneficiary consultation follow the format of a charrette so that there is this quality input? Because if you're looking at construction in early 2023, and that could mean, as far out as maybe May or June, I think you want to get an idea of what the units will contain and have accessible before you do the rehab. So
And Tihomi, I think you might have cut out at the very end. What we heard was that we may want to get an idea of what the units, and then you cut out.
okay, I'm sorry, my computer does act up a little bit. Am I back on? No?
You are.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So, you know, what the units will look like, and just to get a sense of, because they're not going to be very big, right? And so how can we support the potential residents of these units, and then identify, or are we going to identify the needs and fit it to the group? I think my concern is I'm not sure that I have a sense of what kind of services, if any, and if not, then be clear about that. And then also, how can, and I think this is what Eva was alluding to, is that how can beneficiary organizations, whether they're homestead organizations or other Native Hawaiian organizations, how can we support this project? That's the kind of stuff I think we need to have that discussion, but more thought needs to be put into it before the beneficiary consultation. And will
So,
there be more than one?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And will there be more than one, Malia?
Will there be more than one?
Okay. So I think, so this consultation is really just about the land use, as opposed to the program component of the project. So, from the land use perspective, I don't think there's a large need for a lot of multiple discussions, but, you know, depending on where we're at with the first one, if we don't come to a logical conclusion that everybody is comfortable with, then yes, we would have a secondary meeting. But I do hear what you're saying, that it makes sense to have some community engagement with regards to the program aspect of this project. And that is something that this particular consultation was not designed to do, but that doesn't mean that we can't have consultation to meet that end. And I do understand the desire for the community to be involved in it, and that makes sense. So, so thank you all for bringing that to our attention, because, you know, I was really very focused on the land use because we're so far, you know, that's so early in the process. I'm like, okay, well, I got to get through all the environmental stuff. I got to, you know, how are we going to, you know, what are all the steps that we need to do? And so that's sort of the first piece. And I was like, okay, if I don't get the land use designation, we can't even get an RFP to, you know, to work on the design of the building. We are limited in the design based on the fact that we have an existing building, and we're not making huge changes to the building because of we're trying to be fiscally responsible and utilize the size of the units as they are. So the changes, we don't have a lot of design flexibility. You know, we have 20 units, so that is the maximum number of units we can renovate. It doesn't make sense to make them any smaller, and it doesn't make sense based on the way the building is designed to make them any bigger. But, you know, how they get designed internally, it's, you know, they are small. So we don't have a lot of flexibility, but that doesn't mean that we don't want to have involvement with regards to the program component of it, because that definitely, I mean, that's outside of my wheelhouse. I don't have that capacity. And there are a lot of people that do have and would be able to provide, you know, their mana'o and their experiences to help us, because this is our first time doing this. It's this, At least from the department standpoint, where we're doing it ourselves for our beneficiaries. I mean, we have tried it in the past where somebody else was running it and it didn't go exactly, it didn't end up being just for our beneficiaries. So this is our first go at it, that will be just for beneficiaries. So, I will ask Lehua, to kind of chime in here, but I do think we can do a consultation on the program side of things.
So before I get to that, I did want to make one comment about the committee. We just may need to proceed cautiously. And the reason why I say that is if there's a certain organization that would like to bid on the project, you may want to be cautious about getting involved because then it may limit, because you may be deemed as having a conflict of interest. But that being said, I still think as a beneficiary, so keeping that issue separate, we want to get your engagement as early and as much as possible. So we'll do our best to design and give every opportunity for beneficiaries to engage in the process. As Malia said, this specific building is really geared because they are studios. I think with that in mind, we well know that the need is greater than a studio and there may be families, but for this specific purpose, it will probably serve this need. And then as we find out the demand and we can find other opportunities to expand, helping more of our families, and we would definitely want to do that. But I think, again, we want to engage as much as we possibly can. And then I'll turn it over to Cynthia if she wants to talk a little bit more about the program side and the engagement on that.
No, I think Lehua is right. We're gonna have to come up with another meeting or communications that we can make sure that we're getting your feedback as far as what your vision is in this process. Part of the reason why I guess I'm not having heartburn over these being studios is because the number of people that I saw on the PIT list in 19 and 20 were all individuals. They were not couples and they were not families. One of the trends that has been happening over the years is I know that the state has been concentrating very heavily on trying to get families taken care of. So as far as families on the beach, not so many as we're seeing individuals and couples out there. So these studio type units in my mind, and especially since in 19 and 20, I found 78 unique individuals from our wait list on the PIT count. I mean, even if I just had those 78 to come from that are individuals, I mean, it'd take me what, 5 years to go through all of those at least. So I think for a start, I think Lehua is right. This is the first time the department is getting involved in this. It's a whole new arena. I think it's going to be a learning curve for us on our side, trying to put this together. And for the beneficiaries to be able to get involved, see what's going on, and is this where we want to go? And if it is successful, how do we help even more people? And again, that's where we're trying to look at different alternatives. Are there other places that we have? Are there places that are available? How do we approach this in a larger fashion? Again, I know everybody wants to jump and have this thing done tomorrow, but we're kind of crawling right now. And
Maybe next week.
We are working really hard.
I don't want to be jumping into the fire quite yet.
I'm just grateful that you folks collaborate with something like this and took a different approach.
I'm sorry, please come up. I forgot to thank you.
I'm just really glad that to see the department and you folks all you three collaborate something like this. And like you said, it's the first of its kind. And for me, that's just that just indicates that the department is listening to the people and it's really seeing firsthand of what the needs. So I'm hoping more of these programs, are happening, but I will follow it. So I just want to say thank you so much because John and I have been thinking about this and we've been talking about this with other communities. And especially with Nanakuli, with some of the churches that do transitional housings too. So to see the department and majority of our church people are the 50%ers and the wait list, and so see the department thinking from those that don't have the opportunities, it does make my heart really happy. So I'm looking forward to it. I know it's a process, but at least it's a vision, and it's going through it. So much mahalo, you folks.
Thank you.
And we have a hand raised,
Auntie Home, please turn on your mic and you can ask your question.
and then Tracy also.
And then Tracy will be afterwards.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Mahalo. I'll make this very quick. So in thinking about this, then what I'm following is that when we say transitional, then what that means to me is that we're going to provide this facility for those on the applicant wait list, or that's the target population. And so the transition is from applicant to becoming a lessee. So with that thought in mind, I think it takes me to the next level in terms of specific support programs, including financial literacy and employment opportunities. And so there are things within the Kalaeloa area that could support that. I know that the department was intending to do this project, and I'm excited about it too. I'm glad to see that that building is not going to sit there and be empty like it has been for the last 20 years. Because it's kind of unsightly, right? And so I'm anxious and I'm very happy along with Eva to see that resource that the department has. And, with the $600 million coming on, I'm hopeful that if we can at least get one person from that area, from this project to become a lessee, then you would have done your job. For me, I'm just saying that for myself. Mahalo.
So Auntie Homer, I think we have to define terms and that's on us. When we're talking about transitional here, we're talking people who are on DHHL's wait list, and that's why Cynthia was talking about the point in time count that are homeless. So when we're talking about transitional, we're talking more about our beneficiaries who, when we oftentimes there's a discussion about a housing spectrum. So most of what DHHL has done has been on those who are ready for home ownership. This one is really for people who are on the other end of the spectrum, which are they're more like homeless, Auntie Home. So I apologize if it's our definition of using words. I can tell you that we fully support where you want to go with transitional and helping people get to where they can get a lease. But really, I think this is even one step further back than that. And I don't know if you want to go into that a little bit more, Cynthia.
Yes, thank you, Kalaeloa. Actually, Auntie Homie, essentially what we're doing is we're taking people that are pretty much down and out on their luck and where they're at. We want to bring them into a stable situation where we can get them off the beach, get whatever barriers they have to living in four walls with a roof, get accustomed to that, and then transition back into either getting a job or getting benefits that they may be able to receive, whether it's going to be SNAP benefits or SSI or whatever the case may be, to get them stabilized so that they can integrate back into the real world, if you will. And then if we can get them stabilized into permanent housing and continue to work with them, whether it would be us or whoever would be taking that individual on beyond that, is to try to get them then into either getting a job, getting an income, getting stabilized that way, so that maybe in time they could become lessees. We're not anticipating I'm going to be able to take them from the beach, put them in here, and then turn them into lessees within 18 months. I think that's not realistic. But it's that start on that path that we want to give people the opportunity. Because otherwise, the situation they're in is not good. And I think we've all seen the numbers. Being homeless, life expectancy is generally 25 years shorter than for people that are housed. And that's pretty significant. So we're trying to turn some of that corner here. Little steps at a time to eventually get people heading down a path that potentially at some point they may be able to become lessees. But it's not going to be an immediate thing. We're trying to give people opportunity.
Tammy, if you're ready, you can, Tracy,
Great.
I'm so sorry, Tracy.
That's okay.
If you're ready, I can't
Yeah.
read it.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say that I think it's a wonderful idea. And I'm so happy to see that, you know, Department of Homeland is moving in that direction to help those in need. And in the beginning, I was kind of hesitant, but you know, it's a vision and it's going to be a process. But I really agree with what I heard tonight. And you know, I'll be praying that it goes through, because it's something that I think the beneficiaries need. And I'm glad we're taking a step in the right direction.
About time.
Say that again. I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry. About time that we're doing something for our people. Yeah, because as a director of Makano Keakua, we are working on a cultural piece. For me, it's helping the guys incarcerated to come out and transition to a structured home. Yeah. Helping them to get back to our community, workforce, and most of all, back to our family. And I've taken those steps. So, yeah. So thank
Mahalo
you.
for doing that.
Thank you.
If possible, can I share your information? So I have a really good friend. Her name is Carrie Ann Shirota. She works with the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, and they're really working on a project that is how they can do better. They do policy in general, but I know that this is an area she would like to expand for DHHL to do a better job in people who come out of, our beneficiaries who come out of incarceration. So if possible, if I can, I know they're doing this whole process now where they're reimagining the work that they're doing. So I think it would be great. I think it's something that I know we want to do as well. And again, we're starting with what we have and where we're at. But I think this is an area that we've also been talking about, because so many of us, our Native Hawaiians, are overrepresented in the criminal justice system.
Yes.
So if there's a
Yes.
way we can try and help that, and so to hopefully they can come back into society and not you know, the whole where they go back in, right? And
Right.
that revolving door, right? If
Well,
can-
we have a 72% success rate every year.
Awesome.
Yeah, like I said, we've been around for 19 years, and we have almost 160 beds in the organization. So, yeah, and yes, let's do that.
Okay,
So you got my number, call me, but I'd be more than happy. This is my passion. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I gotta go.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us both in person and virtually. It was a small crowd, but a great crowd. So, and this is an exciting project. It's just the beginning. And we will keep you informed as we continue to move forward. So I do thank you all for your time. Mhm. Mahalo.